Welcome to the Harshie Podcast.
Hello.
We are doing our 20th episode.
Number 20.
It's pretty awesome.
It's actually really cool.
Very proud of myself for being consistent. You, that's not an issue. You're very consistent.
Yes.
I tend to not be. As I get older, I think I am more and more, though.
You are getting better. I will give you that.
I'm getting better.
You're getting more better.
Are you trying to say that I needed improvement? Because you're not supposed to say that or agree with me. Only I can say that about myself.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Well, we figured we would do something special for our 20th episode. And we're going to talk about sex.
Sexy time.
You know that's not sexy, right?
It's not?
No.
Oh.
Mm-mm. But every time somebody mentions sex, my mind goes straight to the song. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that can be. Let's talk about sex. Okay, no. Am I the only one? I mean, I can't be the only 90s kid listening to this. I remember that song came out. I think I was in middle school and I wasn't having sex, and it was such a catchy song. But most catchy songs are about sex for a reason. Sex sells.
They are. Yeah, sex does sell quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, but it becomes a whole different ball game when you're on Team No Sleep and you're a parent. Did you like that? Did you like all the puns there? That was awesome.
Yeah.
But it does become a whole different ball game when you're a parent in postpartum and you've got kids and co-sleeping and everything else. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, Team No Sleep reminds me of any kind of team you're a fan of, and they have a different coach that they hire from time to time. And I feel like Team No Sleep before kids was really enjoyable. Like, that was a really good coach. I really liked that particular coach. And then once we have kids, the new coach for Team No Sleep is a real slave driver. Really just an asshole. Like, when is management going to fire this
Teething
son of a
is an
bitch?
asshole. I know that. So,
yeah, Teething is an asshole as the assistant coach.
Absolutely. Well, so should we dive right into like questions people have asked and start there and see where it goes? Or do you have something that you want to talk about first?
What's your favorite position?
Start. I don't think it's going to be that kind of podcast. I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Gosh, Brandon. How long were you holding on to that?
I actually just thought of it. I feel pretty proud of myself for thinking on the fly like that.
Yeah, fly ball. Okay, so I think that it's something that I would start with saying is that whatever frustrations you're having when it comes to intimacy and sex, especially postpartum, you're not alone. So many of us feel like we're the only ones struggling with finding a new normal or getting used to our changed bodies or having miscommunication and frustrations with our partner or spouse, but you're not the only one going through it. It's a topic no one talks about while everyone's going through it in some way or another. So there are so many things that we can touch on with this, but that's the first thing that I want you to know is that you and your partner, or if you have a spouse, you're not the only ones that are going through the struggles that you're going through with this. Our bodies change after we have a baby. Like, there's no such thing as getting your body back because you literally grew a human being and birthed it one way or another. So there's going to be changes in your body, whether it's from vaginal birth, cesarean birth, you're going to have changes in your body. So you're first needing to make space for yourself as the birthing person, as the woman, and make space for yourself and getting used to your new body. I will say right now, with every single thing we talk about tonight, the number one key is communication and talking with each other. So talk about it, talk about it with your partner, talk about it with your girlfriends, talk about it with your mom or your aunts, but talk about it. And your self-love and body positive journey may just be beginning because you never really had any issues before. Maybe you love your body more now. Maybe you're uncomfortable in it, but whatever it is, make space for that. I don't think that's something that you've ever struggled with.
No, I have not. It's funny because sex is such a weird topic in our country. I know in Europe it's pretty well accepted, and
maybe. I mean, from our perspective as Americans, it is. I wonder about people living there, what they would say about it.
Well, I know they have nudity in the commercials and
yeah,
parts of Europe, or maybe all of Europe. I don't know. I can't verify that personally. But in this country, it's weird because sex is everywhere. It's on everyone's mind. But yeah, it's uncomfortable to talk about for a lot of people, especially when you're talking with like family members and things like that. But I don't know. It's a part of life. It's how you have kids. It's why you're on Team No Sleep to begin with, because you had sex to make a baby and now you have a baby, and that baby is preventing you from having more sex, which you would like to have, which will probably create another baby. And then next thing you know, you have 6 kids and you're doing a podcast about sex, and it's
quite the tangent there.
Yeah. What were you talking about again?
But isn't it interesting though? Because I feel like as a woman, that's how it is from puberty for me. Like, you're super embarrassed about, growing breasts and starting your period, and no one can see that. And, that's where the shame, if it hasn't already started, does start. And so that just gets carried into motherhood and postpartum for us. So for some of us, finding your voice in your body and your sexuality after having kids, it's the first time you do so. It's different for everyone. It's going to be a different journey for everyone. I will say that whatever you're going through, whether it's, with your body or your hormones or your sex drive or lack of, make sure you're having the conversation with your partner or your spouse. It's so easy for either person, husband, wife, partner, whoever, to assume what the other's thinking or feeling, and to have the discussion only with yourself and just assume. And you'd be surprised sometimes if you have the conversation out loud with each other that what you're thinking, the other person's thinking may or may not be completely accurate, and it might be quite insightful. So make sure that you're not only having the conversation with yourself and that you're having it with your spouse or your partner. I would say that's the first thing to do. Communicate. So there's the issue of, or not issue for everyone, but of your body changing postpartum, especially for the female. There is this feeling of expectations, and maybe you can help with this, but I have had women ask me, what do I do? Because, my partner or my husband has expectations of, my body or our sex life. And, I just am feeling like I'm not meeting those expectations. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. Early on, our first kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, there are expectations when you are a younger father, and it's younger father, younger husband. And the expectations don't necessarily go away until you've had a little bit of experience, or the communication has been very open. You just don't know how it is. I had no clue what it was like having kids. So when I know we talked about in the past podcasts how I was kind of a deer in the headlights when we had baby number 1. I didn't know what to expect. I was thinking after 3-4 weeks, hey, you probably healed by now. Well,
Or hey, it's been 6 weeks. Didn't you get the clearance? I don't know who the hell came up with that 6-week crap.
Well, yeah, and you had the C-section with number 1, so I do remember in my mind thinking like, oh well, it wasn't a regular birth, so probably can go sooner. Major
abdominal surgery, no big deal.
Right.
But that's the other thing too. This goes back to women not knowing their bodies. So definitely, how can we expect our husbands to is, many women don't realize that after they have a cesarean, you still bleed vaginally postpartum. Like you still go through that process of bleeding vaginally. And when we had sex the first time postpartum after our first, it wasn't just tender because of the cesarean, but also vaginally it was tender for me because it had been a while since we had sex and I had been bleeding, and my body had gone through changes. So it was very, very uncomfortable the first time after every kid, actually. It was for me personally. So, I would say that we attempted about 6 to 8 weeks postpartum each time, and it was different every single time. Most of the time it was uncomfortable that first time. Other times it wasn't as uncomfortable. It just depended on the birth and where you and I were at. But I just wanted to interject and just add that in.
It leads me to a couple thoughts. One of them and this is just how it's going to probably be most of the time. I would say that after the baby has arrived, the mom, the female, the wife, is probably not thinking about sex much at all.
Most of the time, no.
No.
It's a very rare case.
She's healing, trying to figure out nursing, trying to figure out a whole hell of a lot of things going on with her body, with the baby. From the male standpoint, he is thinking about sex quite often and how little he's getting.
It's really hard as the woman to not scoff at that. You know
right,
that, right?
I know. I know that that's probably making some people pissy. Like, I can't believe that's what he's saying.
But that's the honest truth.
It's true. We're thinking, oh my God, I cannot wait to have sex. Like, can we do anything? Is there anything we can do?
Because a lot of people they may not have been intimate a lot in pregnancy or towards the end of pregnancy, depending on your pregnancy. So it might have been a little while for some of you. Yeah.
Right. You know, some people, the frequency of sex stays the same. For others, it increases. Others, it decreases during pregnancy. So yeah, there's that to consider. So that's my first point. The second point is, because there is healing that needs to be done, like you said, it was probably 6 to 8 weeks. I would say more like 8 weeks for us every time. I would say, if you're a guy, just set the benchmark, set the bar at 12 weeks. Because in many cases... Not 6, not 8, not 10. Just set it for 12. Just assume that for 3 months, you're not getting any.
So change your expectations.
Change your expectations. Unless your significant other has had a very traumatic birth and there's a lot of issues to heal from, you might be pleasantly surprised most of the time. I'm not going to make any kind of guarantees. All I'm going to say is 12 weeks might help you feel a little bit more pleasantly surprised.
The new first low benchmark expectation.
Yeah, I think so. Because, I mean, you hear about some people that will have sex after about 4 weeks, and then they end up with Irish twins. Sorry if that's offensive to people in Ireland. I don't think they care.
I don't think they care too. Go ahead.
So you hear about that sometimes. I think that's a pretty rare case.
Yeah, it happens, but most of the time it's like women are 9 months postpartum and they're like, am I ever going to get my sex drive back? Am I the only one that doesn't have a libido? Like, more times than not, it's like that. And a lot of times that has to do with the hormonal changes your body has gone through, the healing your body is going through, and breastfeeding. So if you're one of those people, or you're the partner of one of those people, they're not the only ones that are going through that. Like, most of the time it takes a while to get that sex drive and that intimacy back.
That's another good point. Just because you finally had sex that first time after the baby's born, don't expect to have it all the time because you have a baby. And if you have other kids and a baby, you really can't expect it a whole lot after that. I mean, it's hard to have with that kind of frequency when you have kids around. And like you said, when the sex drive isn't there for one of the partners, the woman, it's going to be tough. So yeah, the expectations need to really go out the window if you're a guy. I know it's hard. I know it may be tough to hear, and it's like, oh, it's easy for him to say. Well, I've been through it 6 times, so I do know the struggle, and the struggle is real. And yes, I'm sorry to the women listening to this. They're like, oh, whatever. We guys just... No,
I think it's nice I think it's refreshing to have an honest conversation about it, And so I would say, to recap, keep the communication open, have the conversation out loud with each other, change the expectations, and talk about that with each other, what the expectations are. And if one person is struggling, and that goes both ways, discuss that. And remember, this is your partner. This is the person you love. Giving each other grace and understanding during this time goes a long way. And if you're wanting something out of the relationship, maybe you should approach it with, hey, how are you feeling? What are you needing physically and emotionally? Because guess what? If you approach it that way, then your partner, your spouse will in turn be like, wow, that's wonderful, and answer you. And then maybe they'll ask you, what do you need emotionally and physically right now out of our relationship? And how can we attain that? And if maybe there needs to be a middle ground and a compromise. And I will say, to those of you who are listening that are like, oh my gosh, like this just sounds awful. Like, when is this going to end? please step back and realize that this is just a season in your whole entire relationship. I mean, Brandon and I plan on being together for a very long time. And so even if you're talking a year postpartum where the intimacy is, well, finding a new normal in it, you know, and it's not what you want it to be, or it's not meeting your expectations. 1 year out of 60 is a very small percentage, you know, and in the day to day, it doesn't feel that way. In the day to day, it's easy to assume how the other's feelings, get your how the other is feeling, to get your feelings hurt, to get frustrated, to feel like, oh, like this is just so hard. And plus you're exhausted because you're literally exhausted on Team No Sleep, right? So it's very easy to feel the overwhelmingness of it and for it to put a strain on your relationship. But if you can step back and realize that it is a small time in your overall relationship, that can help you take a little bit of a deep breath and readjust those expectations that you're having.
Yeah, the days feel really long, but the weeks are short. They really are. Before you know it, 8 weeks have passed, 12 weeks have passed, 6 months have passed, and hey, things are starting to feel a little bit more normal.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite back to the normal you would like or were used to before, but the time passes faster than it seems. It's just, you know, each day there was times where you feel like you're looking at the clock and just like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end?
Yeah, that's just parenting.
Because you do
in general.
feel like that.
That's just parenting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to share a conversation that Brandon and I had one time where Brandon was having high expectations on me and I was not feeling my needs were met in other ways. And that was after we had our third child. And this was my first vaginal birth with our third child, a VBAC. That I actually shared that birth story on the Birth Hours podcast if you want to listen to it. So it was my first vaginal birth. I tore after birth. I got stitches, and sex postpartum was actually very uncomfortable for quite some time. In hindsight, the midwife stitched me a little too tight, but that's another story. So it was very uncomfortable. Also, Brandon and I were just kind of struggling in our relationship. He was on a break from school. We had moved. So we were having life stresses. So we had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, a brand new baby, and we were moving and we had life stress. And Brandon and I got into an argument when she was a few months old, and he was very upset with me and was actually, well, he was being an asshole about, you know, not having enough sex with him. And he said to me, I can count on the number of, I can count on my hand the number of times we have had sex in the last, whatever it was, 6 months. I don't know. I don't remember exactly how old she was. And I looked at him and I said, really? Because I can count on my hand the number of times you've been intimate with me in any other way other than sex. And let me just tell you what, his face went from selfish and angry to, oh shit, I have fucked up.
See, she doesn't just do it to the trolls on Instagram.
So sometimes you do have to be frank, because it's very easy for each person in the relationship to get stuck in how they're feeling. And this again goes both ways, that you have to just be frank, or you have to give it to in a relatable way, because usually the two people in the relationship are kind of coming from different places. And so sometimes you have to get them to see it your way. And let me tell you, that did it. That did the trick. Yeah. And that changed everything for us, that postpartum and with our intimacy. And we did find a good groove again. And you guys, it does not matter how many children you have to find a new groove in your intimacy every time. I think the first time after every single child was awkward, and we had to find a new, time. First of all, we had to find time to be intimate, which I guess we could talk about that. You know, people ask me, how do you find the time with 6 kids? And I answer with, how can we not find the time with 6 kids? We have to reconnect. We have to be intimate or we'll go crazy. You know, and how do you have intimacy or sex with your partner when you co-sleep? You guys, if you co-sleep and your baby is in your bed, you have sex somewhere else if you're not comfortable having sex in your bed, right? That is not the only place to have sex. So I will share after our 6th, because this is a perfect example. So after our 6th baby, Beard Baby, as you guys know her, we were finding it hard to find moments and time to be intimate. And Brandon and I don't do a lot of quickies, I will say. Like, we really get into our intimacy. We get hot and heavy. So,
oh yeah.
And we were really struggling finding, just privacy and not. We get interrupted constantly all day long if we try to sneak away for anything, even a conversation. There's been days where we've had to text each other just to have an uninterrupted conversation.
It seems so ridiculous,
but it's true.
It's true. Yeah.
So what happened is a few months postpartum, when I was, feeling physically and emotionally okay with sex again, we were just frustrated, and we were having conversations about that because, this was our sixth kid. So at this point, we've kind of been down this road before. And I realized what would happen is, and for those of you that have even one baby, you might find this. I get the baby to sleep. I would nurse her to sleep because, it's breastfeeding. Nurse her to sleep. Then we would get the older children to bed. And then we would want to eat our dinner in peace or watch a show or whatever. Or maybe just had gotten the older kids to bed and we have sat down for a few minutes to talk. And then the baby wakes up again for another feeding because, when they're little, they're going to wake up every few hours to feed. They have tiny tummies. That is normal. Again, changing your expectations. So I realized one night that there was this window of time between I got the baby to sleep, get the older four to sleep, and then there was a window of time between getting all the older kids in bed and when the baby would wake up to nurse again that we were not using properly. So we were co-sleeping at the time and the baby was on our bed, and I would not want her to wake up because if she would wake up to breastfeed, all bets were off. Because I'm okay using my breast to feed my baby and then using my breast sexually, but obviously not at the same time. So there has to be a mental separation for us there. There has to be. And some of you may not be able to make that mental separation, and that's okay. And again, you need to just communicate that. But it takes me, quite a few months postpartum, and then I can make a mental separation. But if she wakes up to breastfeed, let me tell you, I have never seen Brandon more motivated to get a baby back to sleep in my entire life than when she would wake up and want a nurse to go back to sleep. He would do whatever it took to soothe her back to sleep because he knew if I had to breastfeed her, we were done.
Those boobs were mine for that time period and mine alone. And that baby was going back to sleep, damn it. Go the hell to sleep. Go.
So what I did is we had a walk-in closet in this house, and I put a twin air mattress in that closet. And when all the kids were in bed, I would say, closet now, don't stop. Do not get a drink of water. Do not go to the bathroom. Closet now. And I would bring the air mattress down and we would have our naked time. Our naked cardio, we like to call it. We had naked cardio. Yep. And so our closet was at the end of our bathroom as well. So the bathroom and the closet got used a lot. And you guys, we were 36 when we had her.
Yeah.
So at 36 years old, we had been together for how many years then? This a few years ago.
17 years.
17 years. We were finding new ways to be intimate with each other. We were having fun. We were experimenting, and we were finding time to do it. So you just look at your day, step back for a moment and look at your day and look at your evening. And if there's a window in there at all that you can sneak away and be together, then use that, And to those of you that are thinking, but I am so tired or I am touched out, first I will validate that and say that's okay. And if you're not ready or you're touched out, don't. For those of you that are feeling that way, but you also do want to be intimate once in a while or a couple of times a week with your partner or your spouse, talk to them about that. But I have found over the many years of having kids and also wanting to be intimate with Brandon is that many times I would need to just allow myself to start being intimate with him, to just start being intimate with him. And you guys, it is very normal for you to ask your husband or your partner, what you thinking about? And they're like, your boobs, because they're right in front of me. That's it. That's all they're thinking about. And then Brandon will say, well, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, never mind. Keep going. Because y'all, I have like 37 tabs open in my head. Like I'm thinking about so many things. I'm trying to unwind from my day. I'm thinking about all the things I have to do. And it will take sometimes a little while to just let go of all that and clear my mind. And the wonderful thing about orgasms is in the moment of an orgasm, your mind has been cleared. So sometimes you just have to allow yourself to just start being intimate and get to that place. So that's how after 6 kids, we found a window of time and a space in our home that we could privately be intimate without being interrupted.
What was your favorite position in the
Stop
closet?
it. I'm not answering that question. I'm not giving people
I will say
visuals.
that
Don't even.
From the guy's perspective, the question, what are you thinking while both of you are naked and sexy time is happening, is a preposterous question. What do you think I'm thinking about?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Let me go back to the first time you do have sex. Go through puberty.
Wow.
The first time you have sex after having a baby and how you mentioned it was awkward. You know, you think about your first time you ever had sex and that was really awkward. It's like that every time after you have a kid because you've been out of practice a while. I think we touched on this a little bit in a prior episode, but you haven't been intimate in a while and a little bit out of practice. And so it takes a little bit of time to get back into the flow, get into the groove of things. And so it's almost like a first time every time. So I think for us, we've had 7 first times. And
I actually think our first time having sex postpartum is more awkward than our first time before children. I think our first time before children was hot, but I think that
that's a good point.
I think that it's actually more awkward after having kids. Everything's so different. Your body is different. Your life is different. Everything is different. So I think it's more awkward after. But yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah, because it kind of goes something like this.
Stop
like,
it.
Oh, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Are you sure? I'm not hurting you. Yeah, I'm okay. It's about how it is.
Every time.
The whole time. Then afterwards, it's just like, oh, yeah.
I think sometimes.
I guess we'll try again in a few days.
I think that's exactly how it went after we had our first, and we didn't try again for 2 weeks, and then we were still nervous, but it was much better. So yeah, absolutely. And also a little bit more on the being touched out. So, you know, for those of you that, whether you work or you stay at home, but you're just touched out by the end of the day, and then your husband gets home from work and then he wants to touch you too, and you just look at him and you're like, if you touch me, I will cut you. Do not touch me. Right. And then they might think like you're not attracted to them anymore and you don't want to be intimate with them and they just want to be close to you. And that's where it can lead to like so much miscommunication. So if you're touched out, you need some space. You need to breathe. You need no one to need you for a little bit. And I will tell you how to get that. If you tell your husband, look, I am touched out and I know you want to touch me, but if you touch me, I'm going to hurt you. But if you take care of the little one tonight, you feed her dinner, you get her to bed, whatever it is, whatever your situation is. And I can go and just lay in bed and read or go watch a show on my iPad or go take a bath and I can have an hour or 2 untouched. I might be okay with being touched tonight. That man will be so motivated to feed and get that child to bed and give you time to yourself.
Early bedtime.
You know, so communicate, you know, or, you know, just say, you might need that for a few nights before you want to be touched again, but just communicate that, you know. I mean, I'm also the type that if you were to not be understanding of that, I would tell you, well, I'll go to school or work and you stay home and then we'll see how you feel about it. But I don't know. Most people aren't like me, probably.
Yeah. I think the thing is in those early weeks and months after you start being intimate again, I think that the desires of both people in a relationship can be a little bit different. Like you said, from the mom's point of view, maybe just want some time alone. Maybe you want some help, some time to get away, a back rub, foot rub, a bath, something like that. Whereas, from the guy's standpoint, you pretty much just want sex.
Right.
So there can be some kind of a balance that you guys can figure out yourself. I can't tell you what that is because it's different for everybody.
Well, and just remember, other people can't read your mind. So you can't be mad at your husband because he doesn't know what you need if you don't tell him what you need.
Exactly.
And then the husband can't be putting their expectations on the wife when they're not the one going through what they're going through.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. There needs to be, this is why communication is so important, because if you're touched out and then you are frustrated because then your husband wants to be intimate with you and then you're feeling like you're not meeting his expectations, and damn it, why would you have to meet his expectations anyways? Because it's your body and you shouldn't be made to feel that way. That, let me just tell you, that is a thought and that goes that way. And then your husband is feeling like unwanted because, you're just like, don't touch me and stop having these unrealistic expectations of me. And that can just lead to like an endless cycle of just frustration and fighting and hurt feelings on all sides.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas both of your feelings are probably, for the most part, in most situations, probably pretty valid. Just keep that communication open and just say, hey, like, if you want to be intimate with me, I love you. I'm still attracted to you, but I need some time to myself. I need, a night off of this kid stuff, or I need whatever, before I can start feeling refreshed enough to want to be intimate with somebody in that way, So that feeling of being touched out is very, very normal. And it's also, I think, pretty normal for people not to have that conversation out loud and it to lead to more problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as far as breastfeeding, I touched on the co-sleeping and how there's other places in your house to have sex. And the breastfeeding, for me, it's a separation for me in my mind. And I'm very honest about that with Brandon. And I would tell him, like, if she wakes up to breastfeed, like, we're done, So just, again, have an open conversation about that. And, breasts are very intimate and, sexual. I know people try to say, oh, breasts aren't sexual. When we talk about breastfeeding, it's like, actually they are. Breasts are so amazing that they get to be both. They get to feed and nourish our children, and they can also be sexual, and that's okay. But everyone's going to have different comfort levels with that. And however you're feeling about your breasts when it comes to feeding your children or intimacy is completely freaking valid, because it's going to be different for everyone. Just be honest about it with yourself and with your spouse and your partner, and set whatever limits you need to there, or boundaries you need to. There was times postpartum where it's like the breasts were very hands off. We can be intimate, but you can barely touch them, and don't touch my damn nipple, right? And there were other postpartums
oh my
where,
gosh, I remember that.
right? And there were other postpartums where I was more okay with it. So just be honest about it, and guess what? It's going to change over the next few months, or when you wean, or whatever it is,
Well, and you made a lot of milk, so you were engorged.
Yeah. So there was a lot of
you
can't touch them too much, especially the first few months, for sure. Absolutely. If you're having anything, I just want to talk to ladies real quick. If you're having anything where you're feeling something is physically off or whatnot from pregnancy or birth, there are physical therapists. There are different people that you can see, and professionals, that you can see. Sometimes things don't heal quite right. And I think most of the time, unless it's like a traumatic or extenuating circumstance, women don't go back into their care providers or seek out other care providers. And you can't do that. So this also goes into self-care. Like, this is your body and you only get one body. So if you're feeling something is off, even if it's 6 months or 1 year or 3 years postpartum in your body, make an appointment tomorrow or today, if you're listening during the day, and make that appointment to go get a checkup with your OB. If they're not listening to you, another care provider, a midwife, a physical therapist, and get the support and the care that you need for your body, because it's really important. It's really important. It's your body that you're living with every single day. So if you're putting that off, stop putting that off.
And guys, if your woman is putting it off,
support her in getting the help that she needs. Yeah.
Tell her to take care of herself.
Yeah.
Because she deserves it. You take care of yourself. I mean, I know I do. I take care of myself really well. So when January is not taking care of herself, I definitely speak up.
That is true.
She's like, shut up, I don't want to hear it. But then she listens to me later.
In my 20s, I used to get so frustrated with you because you had no problem taking care of yourself. And I'm over here thinking about all the million things I need to do, and then getting resentful because I'm like, if he walks by, that thing on the floor one more time and doesn't pick it up, I'm going to kill him. But in my 30s, I realized that maybe I should have taken a page from your book and taken care of myself a little bit first, that the dishes can wait, that I can go pee by myself, that I can take care of myself in the morning before I'm answering emails or doing this or that the children will be fine for a few minutes.
You can leave that thing on the floor.
You can
walk by it.
I don't know if I can do that, actually. Take it back. Take it back. I'm getting anxiety just thinking about it.
That one little baby sock that no one wears anymore. It's too small
why
for beard
haven't
baby.
I thrown it away? Why? I don't even know where the other sock is. It doesn't fit anyone. I actually throw.
It's always that one little baby sock in the corner of the hall. I'll get it tomorrow.
Oh man! And don't let me see that sock while we're being intimate, because I'll have to stop to go get the sock because I won't be able to clear my mind.
Sex. What are you thinking about? Sex. What are you thinking about? That damn sock.
It's so true.
Doesn't even fit her feet anymore.
Oh my gosh, that is seriously so true. Oh, I know that there's so many things to talk about, and I know that I might be forgetting some. I'm going to look up and see some things that you guys asked me in DM and on the Instagram.
So
Live.
Here's a question. After pregnancy, what was your favorite position?
Stop. My gosh. I don't know what to do with you. I really don't.
We know this is going to be a thing. Now you're going to get DMs. Going to be like, so what really is your favorite position?
No one's going to DM me that. No.
I bet you one person will.
And they're going to get blocked.
Some brave soul DM her so I can be proven right.
No.
Make up a fake account.
What is wrong with you? Make up a fake. Do not encourage people to make up fake accounts to ask me about sex. What is wrong with you? Oh my goodness. No.
My favorite position is all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Hashtag all the positions. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong, but that's not what this is about.
No.
So stop. I think we covered a lot. The variations of normal and not even just a sex drive, but any want or desire to do it. And I actually feel a lot of that revolves around breastfeeding too. Keeping the communication open, changing your expectations. There's other ways to be intimate. There's other places to be intimate. Finding that window of time where you can be. You can set boundaries around your breasts if you need to, especially if you're breastfeeding. But even if you're weaning or not breastfeeding, like you might still be going through some feelings with that physically. So that's okay too.
What about during pregnancy?
Well, I mean, I think it's a different ball game. And there's so many variations with that. There's some women when they get pregnant, just depending on their hormones, or if they have morning sickness or all day sickness, if they have hyperemesis, how they're feeling in their body and the change of their body. And then of course, when you get in the third trimester, that's when positions actually really do come into play, I think. I mean, by the time you're 9-10 months pregnant, usually on top or from behind are the only ways it's happening, because you have a big belly in the way. That's just the logistics of it, but anyways, depending on all these factors, some women have a very strong sex drive when they're pregnant, and maybe only during like one trimester, and some women have none, and then it might just vary depending on the week or the day or how you're feeling. So again, I think it all comes down to communication with your partner or your spouse. It's very easy for each other to assume what the other one's expecting or what the other one's wanting or not wanting, or why they're wanting or not wanting it. So keep that communication open during pregnancy. And it's okay to have sex when you're pregnant, unless your care providers told you otherwise. You're at very high risk for miscarriage, and those kind of things. But your care provider is there for a reason. It is okay to ask them and talk to them about sex when you're pregnant, depending on your body and your situation. And you might have one pregnancy where you feel like you want to have sex all the time, another one where you don't, and you're like, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. It's just different.
Yeah, every pregnancy is different.
Yep.
I do remember, I can't remember which pregnancy it was, but man, your sex drive was really high, and it was great.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
It was amazing.
Thank you for
sharing. And then you had the baby, and it all came to a sudden screeching halt for me.
That was the 6th child, actually.
Was that?
We had amazing sex during that pregnancy.
That is true. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it was 2, because I remember there was one before that you were horny all the time.
Really? Asshole.
Well, how's that a bad thing?
Really? Did you really just say on our podcast that I was really horny during a few of my pregnancies? That really just came out of your mouth.
You're making an uncomfortable subject matter now, just like all the other people I talked about before.
I hope that I'm making it uncomfortable. I hope.
I'm not uncomfortable at all.
You know, once I turned 35, my sex drive actually just did go up. I remember so many years, so many people would be like, oh, you know, when women get older, their sex drive goes up. For me, I actually have found that to be true. So
it's been amazing. Because my sex drive is the same as it was when I was a teenager.
Our sex drives now match.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are younger than us and in relationships and wondering if it's ever going to even out or get better or whatever, it can. Keep the communication open. Stop having children and turn 35.
Embrace the age.
I don't think that's don't quote me on that advice. Oh man. Well, I think that covers most of the main questions that I'm normally asked. I think we've covered just about every question that I'm asked on a regular basis, and maybe there might be some more questions, but we can probably do a follow-up podcast for those.
I'm sure we can. Sex is a very popular topic.
It is.
For people.
It is. But I hope that this helps you feel less alone, like you're not the only one going through what you're going through, and maybe you can get your partner or spouse to listen to this as well, since it was both of us talking about it. And just remember, #orgasm without fear. Actually, it is the biggest stress reliever. One of the biggest ones for sure.
Well, it sends endorphins throughout your body. It's a very healthy thing.
I don't know. I think maybe one of these days we might have to do a podcast on making sure that that's happening for both people in the relationship. I don't know, you guys. If that needs to happen, DM me and let me know.
If that's not happening for both people in a relationship, there is some failing going on.
Oh.
Might need to read a book.
Or DM Brandon.
Watch a video. I don't know. Figure something out.
I just want everyone to have more sleep, more laughter, and more orgasms. I love you guys. That's how much I love you. And with that,
sure.
I
like you a lot.
Until next time, bye.
Adios. I'm horny. Let's go have sex.
No, stop it.